I'm Alex Crook, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent. Thanks for watching the talkSPORT YouTube channel, where we're rounding up the latest stories from the world of football, including a very busy couple of days on the managerial merry-go-round. So let's start north of the border and at Rangers. No real surprise that the Scottish Giants decided to part company with their manager Russell Martin in the aftermath of yet another disappointing result of the weekend. Martin given his marching orders after that 1-1 draw away from home at Falkirk. There were some distressing scenes outside the stadium as Rangers fans boxed in the team coach and surrounded Martin's car before eventually he was escorted out by the police. Very quickly on Sunday night, I got the news that Russell Martin was no longer the Rangers manager. That was quickly confirmed by an official statement from the club. And he also becomes officially the longest-shorting permanent manager in the Glasgow Giants' illustrious history. What next for Russell Martin? I think he's open to interpretation. There are some out there who have branded him a failure at Southampton and at Rangers. I personally think that's a little bit harsh when it comes to Southampton. He took them into the Premier League. Yes, he never looked like keeping them there, but I would argue that was more about a lack of investment than that playing style that ultimately helped prove his undoing at Ibrox. In terms of who's next, well, the name on a lot of Rangers fans' lips is that of Steven Gerrard, their former title-winning manager. He was actually top choice before they appointed Martin in the summer. Wasn't keen to return then, and I have to say I'm getting mixed signals about whether he would go back now. Since leaving Rangers, he had an ill-fated stint in charge of Aston Villa. Didn't really work out for him in the Saudi Pro League either, but he is still living and working out in the Middle East, and I think there might be some tax implications if he was to accept a return to Rangers. Having said that, other people close to Gerrard are suggesting that he may feel now is the time to return and try and recreate that title-winning season of many years ago. Other potential options: Sean Dyche, the ex-Everton and Burnley manager. I was told this morning that Kevin Thelwell, the much-maligned sporting director at Ibrox, has held talks with Dyche. They work together at Everton. Then there's Derek McInnes, who's done wonders at Hearts, taking them to the top of the table, 11 points clear of Rangers as we sit here right now. He does have an emotional pull to the football club, but what I'm being told there is that he won't asked to apply for the job. He would have to be given encouragement, I think, by Rangers that he was the top choice. Looking at the statement that the board released this morning, confirming they got it wrong when it came to Russell Martin, they're talking about the fact this will be a rigorous recruitment process. The impression I get is that they didn't have a definitive target in mind when they decided to pull the trigger. But of course, we are into this 2-week international break now, so a hiatus from domestic football. I would expect a permanent replacement to be in situ by the time Rangers return to domestic action. We're going to be keeping a close eye on this over the coming days right here on talkSPORT. Another manager bang under pressure heading into the break is Ange Postecoglou and Nottingham Forest. It's now 7 games, no victories for the former Tottenham boss. I saw a rather cruel meme on social media this morning talking about 007 in terms of his record as Nottingham Forest manager. That's the first time a Forest boss has failed to win any of their first 7 matches at the helm in more than 100 years. Of course, he was taunted following last week's disappointing defeat at home to Midtjylland in the Europa League, with chants from his own supporters of "you're getting sacked in the morning." I think it's in the balance as to what Evangelos Marinakis, the notoriously hard-to-please Forest owner, does from here. He was seen shaking his head during that game against Midtjylland. It was another defeat at Newcastle at the weekend, albeit maybe a slightly improved performance. There have been whispers that some of the players there are not necessarily buying into Ange Postecoglou. If they do decide to make a change, one name that I know Marinakis is a big admirer of is Marco Silva down at Fulham. He actually led Olympiacos to the Greek League title under Marinakis, and I'm told the pair have maintained a good working relationship. I've written about this on my notebook on the talkSPORT website. I think Marco Silva, in terms of his long-term future, it probably lies away from Craven Cottage. He's out of contract at the end of the season. Will he leave mid-season for Forest? Well, that is the big question, but certainly he will be a target if, as I say, Postecoglou does pay the price for that poor start with his job. Let's focus now on the England captain Harry Kane, shall we? Because there was a focus last week on the fact he's got a release clause in his Bayern Munich contract that would enable him to return to the Premier League for less than £60 million at the end of the season. That got fans of his old club, Tottenham, particular excited, maybe the likes of Manchester United as well. But Harry Kane has been speaking in the German media over the last 24 hours and has shot down those stories, really. He says he's open to staying at Bayern, yet to discuss a potential new contract. And he admits, Kane, that when he went over to Germany in the first place, probably part of the plan was to return to the Premier League. Never say never, he says, but he says that possibility looks less likely now. And you can understand it, I think, because he's breaking all kinds of records in the Bundesliga that maybe isn't as physically demanding as the Premier League. And I think the hope for England, actually, is that because of that, his body will be in much better shape when it comes to the World Cup next summer than maybe it was heading into the European Championships a couple of years ago, when Kane was clearly not fit, kept getting picked game in, game out by Sir Gareth Southgate, but that didn't really allow him to perform to the top level that he seems to week in, week out in Germany. I do think it's a blow for Spurs, who are lacking in that number 9 department, and Manchester United, as I say, would be interested as well. But as we record this video, I think it looks more likely that Harry Kane stays in Germany, keeps adding to his trophy cabinet, and of course that would stop him from breaking Alan Shearer's record as the Premier League's leading goalscorer of all time. Let's dip into the Championship just before I leave you today, and maybe the least surprising story of the season so far is that Watford are changing managers. Surely not, I hear you gasp. Yes, Paolo Pezzolano, only appointed in the summer due mainly to his great record of getting teams promoted from the second tier in other European leagues to the top flight. Hasn't quite worked out that way so far, though, at Vicarage Road. 3 wins from his 9 Championship games. He's been goaded on more than one occasion by his own supporters. He's out the door. The man to replace him, well, it looks like that will be Javi Gracia, back for a second stint in charge. And of course, he led Watford to their first FA Cup final in 35 years, first time around when they were hammered at Wembley by Manchester City. So 1 in, 1 out as the revolving door at Watford continues to turn at speed. Thanks for watching the talkSPORT YouTube channel. Those are the big stories of the day. We'll be back tomorrow for more big headlines.
Don't forget, this video is in association with our own bookies, talkSPORT Bet. So download the app or head to the website talksportbet.com for more information. 18+, T's and C's apply. BeGambleAware.org.